The market is hot and Bitcoin could be nearing an all-time high. You guys don't want to miss this one. Let's get right into the show today. And I want to lead off, of course, thanking our sponsor, and that is Coinbase. If you guys want to get out there and begin to take part in this crypto scenario that's happening right before our eyes, jump over to Coinbase.com. Use our link down below. You're going to be able to get up to a $2,000 bonus. It's kind of like a raffle, I guess, of some sort, when you just buy 50 bucks in crypto. So you, of course, can trade and explore all sorts of tokens over there, including Bitcoin, ETH, XRP, Solana, and of course, get in on some of those stablecoins with USDC. Let's go over to our guest today, who has been on our show before, and that, of course, is DataDash. Paul coming in. How are you, man?
I'm doing great, Paul. We got Bitcoin almost at all-time highs, and Paul's at all-time highs on the show.
I like it. I like it. If you guys haven't, checked out his channel, do that right now. Jump over to YouTube, DataDash, right there on YouTube. Kicking it up, doing a lot in terms of content and educating the space out there. So does a fantastic job. Make sure and subscribe and drop a comment over there and just tell him I came over from PBN. And that way, at least they know something's happening out there. Hey, listen, a couple of points are hitting right now. We got a government shutdown. Day 3 is in order. It doesn't look like the markets care on this, Paul.
Right.
At this point, you know, we've got S&P all-time high, Bitcoin edging it, ETH trying to push, everything pushing right there. If you look at the chart, it's a green day as usual in the month of October. When you look, and actually, before we go to the chart, because we're going to give you guys a Bitcoin chart today, we're also going to take a look at Ethereum and a handful of altcoins. So whether or not this is a good time to be jumping into this market, going into the weekend, Paul will be able to break that down for you guys. Let me go to a clip real quick, and then I want to get your opinion on what they say. Let's cut to SOT 1.
We should not expect any different today. At this point, there just doesn't seem to be a way out of this government shutdown. Of course, we've missed job numbers now, and the impacts of the shutdown are only going to get worse. Like, I think one of the big trigger points is going to be the moment that you can't get the paychecks out. For the millions of federal workers, they just ended a pay period that ended at the end of September, so they were able to be paid for that. From the economic data, you know, we're missing the jobs numbers today, but perhaps even more important, the BLS is not collecting information when it comes to jobs and when it comes to prices, which means even if you do see data released later this month or even next month, it might not be as accurate if they've missed a long period of time that they were supposed to be collecting these data and getting this information. Going to be very interesting to see as that pressure ramps up. Do you see more Senate Democrats today say, you know what, this isn't sustainable anymore, we're going to have to vote to fund the government? Or do you see them continue to hold firm and try to make some progress on health care?
All right, so they needed 8 Democrats to come over. I think they're up to 5 right now. But there's still a lot to go here in terms of the shutdown. How much of an impact, Paul, do you think this has right now on the charts? It doesn't appear to have one, but what's your opinion?
You know, honestly, just hearing that, I feel like at the current rate, like it doesn't, like you said, it's like the markets just don't care. For me, I'm actually tracking, especially for Bitcoin right now and everything else, that we could see a little bit more upside here in the next few weeks. And just thinking out loud now, listening to that, as if the government comes, you know, back online towards the end of this month and we get to all the new information at that point, that might actually cause a little bit of a cool down at that point. Yeah. So it's one of those things where I feel like right now it's kind of in limbo. We're still seeing upside. When those things come back into play, it actually might cool us off for a bit. Just thinking out loud there.
Yeah, the jobs numbers could come back in. I still think, though, the jobs numbers are a bunch of bacchus. Most of the time it's inaccurate. They adjust them down or up. It's one of those scenarios. You look at just inflation right now, trueflation, holding out at 2.25. Kathy Wood is claiming that she thinks inflation is going to drop under 2 next year. Of course, that aligns with the potential of getting more Fed rate cuts, or it could be. When you look at rate cuts coming in, do you think we're in a position right now where we could see PCE rate cuts along with what could be a let me kind of zoom in on that, a rapidly deteriorating labor market playing into this that will push Bitcoin well past its all-time high by end of year? What is your opinion on where Bitcoin goes from there if you go to your chart?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll go ahead and pull up the chart here. And so, you know, last time I was actually on here a few months back, we were trading around $107,000, and just without any kind of news that we were, you know, that at this point, it's so hard to even keep up with some of it. But my idea set at that point was that we would see about $130,000 on Bitcoin, and specifically around the 29th of September this year, which we're which we're coming into essentially right now, right? So, and I based that off of this setup here that basically was from our carry trade low, to our high side of basically inauguration day to our low back, where we put in the tariffs. And this is a harmonic setup, which is a sequence of Fibonacci's, and I won't really bore everybody with it, but essentially there's a time point where this comes into play with a Fibonacci expansion area. Both of them lined up with the end of September 29th, which was obviously this week now. And before that, we already came up to about 125 just a few weeks ago. So this was kind of my, I don't want to say like the end of the year like target, but this is definitely something where I feel like we're going to probably see a sizable pullback from this region. So for me, honestly, I think we push up a little bit more into this region and have to pay attention about this 140. And honestly, I think we end the year back down towards 100K, if I'm being honest.
Oh, okay. All right. So you're more bullish on short term and more bearish on long term into end of year, December.
Yeah, I think that I think that we're going to probably see a few more weeks. Like, the October is going to be here. Maybe this Q4 kind of showcases a few weeks here with the altcoins pushing up. I still think we got more upside right now, but we're coming into a major period where, I've been pointing out that if we're going to see another sizable 30, and I don't think like bear market by any means, but just something we've seen pretty much the entire way, right? Where we got these slow kind of sideways and down 30% pullback, sideways and down 30% pullback. I think that that's what's going to come out of this region where we're at trading right now, up to about 130, 140, which takes us back into like 80s and 90s. And honestly, from there, I'm looking for the next rally into 2026 being very, very big again.
All right, well, there you heard it, guys. I mean, there's some opportunity here in terms of the volatility with that. Bitcoin right now, JP Morgan, it seems like there's a lot of people piling on these massive numbers. 165 now is JP Morgan's target of a potential reach. And if you look at just the comparison on gold, one of the things that they've done right here, this is a good example. Do you think Bitcoin and gold ever detach from each other? Because they look pretty tight right here in terms of correlation.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't know. One of the things that to me that I really have been focused on over the last few years is looking at the 20-year housing market, 20-year economic cycle, the business cycle, if you will. Kind of noted that Bitcoin and crypto have been putting in their first 20-year cycle, especially the fact that it was born at the end of the 2008 collapse, which was our notable last high. I think that gold is probably the only true thing we can compare Bitcoin to at this point. And one of the biggest reasons I look to that as well is because now of the ETFs, right? So Bitcoin just got its ETF in 2024. To me, just kind of looking back at that housing market idea where we could probably see a really big high coming in the next few years. Gold got its ETF exactly 4 years in 2004, right before 2008 collapse. And Bitcoin, to me, I think is lined up to do exactly the same thing. We got the ETF in 2024 in a big theory here. If within 2027, 2028, we see a pullback, I think that Bitcoin is basically going to follow right in gold's footsteps. So they answer the question of will they ever separate? I think for like the foreseeable next few years, I don't think it will. I think that the two of them are pretty much lock and key at this point.
Well, and I mean, you got to look at the movement that we've seen on gold just in comparison here. If you go all the way back to 18, I mean, what's that been? Back from 2018 to where gold is punching through right now, which has been significant, holding out at its all-time high, 3,800. That's still a 200% move here for gold. Now, granted, it has had that period of time, which was really around 2020, where it kind of did that sideways range. So do you think Bitcoin gets to that point where there's less volatility in the market and kind of follows the path of gold?
I do actually. And like I said, I'll take a look at the gold chart here too while I just kind of cover this idea. But so yeah, looking at gold, same way I was looking at the $3,600 area was a big region I was looking to for us to come up to in this year, and just no breaks at all. Like it was just blew right through it. So at this point, I imagine we're on our way to 4,000. 4,000 is not too far away, but 4,400 at some point. And the idea, behind that is, and the only unfortunate part is I don't have the gold chart that goes back, any longer than this, because of course we have to look at some websites, but. Yeah, to compare Bitcoin and gold, I very much anticipate the Bitcoin price to start to follow gold in the sense of where you don't get these 70 to 80% pullbacks in Bitcoin anymore. More than likely, you get these 30 and 40 probably, and then even smaller than that. Even what'd you say for 2020 pullbacks here in gold? It was 20%. This was probably 25%, and then otherwise than that, it's just been up only as the as that true hedge, I guess you could say, even though everything else is going up at the same time right now. I do think that Bitcoin follows in those footsteps for sure.
All right, so less volatility. Some people are kind of pointing to that issue. One thing that I think is really going to showcase here, and this was what we talked about in our last video, ETH to lead the next altcoin rally. The question I have is, in this video, when we called that, I think our ETH number was, right there in June. We would be up 83% if you listened to Paul back then. So nice move on ETH. But in some cases, people were expecting Ethereum to do a little bit more in terms of aggressive upside. Where do you think ETH goes between now and end of year, where you're talking about a pullback on Bitcoin?
Yeah, so ETH, it really comes down to the time points when you're looking, because of course, like we haven't seen Ethereum break all-time highs, and I'll just kind of cover some of this up so it doesn't look too confusing. But if you're looking at the recent move in ETH, we came off of $1,400 to $49 so far, so like 260%. Obviously, if you bought the exact low, which most people don't, obviously. But same thing here. I was anticipating a little bit more gas in the tank as we came up to this region. As we go on, obviously, we have to adapt to the new information. But for me, with looking at Bitcoin potentially pushing up to that 130 target area in the next coming weeks, ETH here has basically just pushed up really strongly. And then as you'll note, I have a couple of Fibonacci retracement zones, very simple, just pulled off of the last swing low, pretty much where you and I actually talked last.
Yep.
And then it pushed up to this region. I'm pulling it off of this. So when you start to get these slow pullbacks, and this took about a month, everybody gets really bearish, starts targeting the gold pocket or maybe even 786 and lower. For me, I look for these strong trends to get continuation off the 382. It's what we tend to see a lot of times in really strong trends, whether it's up or down. And at this point, I anticipate ETH to come back to break that all-time high still. I'm looking at least 5,000 to 5,600 by the end of this year, which is not a crazy, interesting area. I'm sure for most people it's about 15% from where we are now. But overall, probably in the 6 to 7K area. I still think we have a chance for 6, 7K ETH this year, and then a rollover, a cool down. And 2026, Paul, I'm really looking at as a major opportunity where many probably will look at it as a bear market if we get a big pullback in the next coming months, because everybody's looking at 4-year cycle. It's Q4 if Bitcoin maybe tops. I don't think we get a crazy bottoming action. I think that we'll get a cool down for just like we've seen this whole run, and then we actually get a big move to the upside in 2026.
All right, so your prediction is 2026 is a layup that we're dealing with right now going into this 4-year cycle comparison. 2026, is your thesis mainly because of the packed in rate cuts? Because obviously May we'll see Trump's new, chair of the Fed come in. It's likely that we could see as much as a 1-point fall off after 3 cuts into January. If all of that plays into it, is that your thesis? And the fact that we might be getting jobs coming back in so economy would be stronger? Where do you think it's coming from?
It's tough to put with like some of the news catalysts, because as we both know, the news can go literally both ways, and sometimes the same news catalyst affects the market in 2 different ways, I guess I could say. My main thesis on this is that it's one of those things where show me the chart and I'll tell you the news type of thing. So I'll go to that. And this was I don't know if I showcased this last time I was on, but this is one of the reasons why I've been so bullish on Ethereum specifically, and not to count out that altcoins in general won't do well, but this is a major, thought out plan here that I've been tracking since 2023. And what this is, again, it's a sequence of Fibonacci's, this setup, which is a very bullish one. Okay, we come down, you complete towards the low, very similar to like a falling wedge, descending channel. You're bearish in the making, and then it's a bullish reversal usually.
Right.
In this case, it was a time period where I was looking for Bitcoin or ETH to outperform Bitcoin for about 1.5 to 3 years from the bottom, which was April of this year. Main target being the gold pocket at least, if not a full reversal all the way back up to like 0.085 here. But the idea at hand is that we pushed up, right? So now we have more information here along the lines here. My completion zone for these targets are around December of 2026. So that's completion zone, right? So we can literally, be tracking all the way up there throughout the year. And this setup right here is what gives me more so that leaning into, on top of that, the housing market cycle idea that I've been going off of for almost 10 years, all comes into play around that region. So that's one of the biggest plays. And I think that, yes, I think we'll find that, rate cuts will come in, all the news catalysts will probably align well with it. I think the rate cuts will probably be a major piece of it easily. And then the other ones will just kind of be the smaller intraday, intra-week, news catalysts that we're used to seeing that move the price locally. But overall, I think it heads higher.
Yeah, well, I mean, you look at the surge right now up to 4,500 where we are today, and some analysts, again, aligning with you, but in a different time frame, saying we could see 100% rally. But I think the real question is, once this rallies up, Paul, do you feel like we're going to have an opportunity to buy ETH in the range of, let's say, 23 to 24? Is that your adjustment back down, or based on what your correction was on Bitcoin, or how would you see this playing out end of year?
So
what would be our next entry, is I'm getting at?
I gotcha. Yeah, so I actually have a good idea of that too, right? So again, if we're looking at potential here, this $55,000 to $5,600 region is just a real next major target zone that I'm looking for the upside. My real idea here is that we probably actually push it up towards about 6,000 to 7,000. And at that point, I'm looking at just again, looking at this as a major point. Zooming out just to some simple stuff here, I'd probably say we come back towards around this $4,000 region, and let's just take a new look here, just from a swing low to swing high, and towards I would say 3,300. If we get the chance at 3,300 again, that's the next major entry for me. Assuming we go to 7,000 first, right? That's the issue.
That'd be a big retracement.
Yeah, it'll be about 40%, which is going to be in line with the Bitcoin idea. This setup that I was talking about here, where we're coming into completion basically right on time, just about, sorry about all the scrolling, just about all in the same window here. And this is a super bearish setup on Bitcoin that if we just take from our tariff lows towards let's just pretend the high's in now, but really I'm targeting up to that 130. It's a simple fib retracement basically, but the target of this setup is back to your gold pocket, which puts us at about 98,000. So that's, give or take 29-30% on Bitcoin. Usually ETH and Bitcoin are in tandem. If not, ETH usually drops a little bit more than Bitcoin would. So that'd be my idea, is push up a little bit more here, get a little 30% retrace, and then we're off to the races in 26.
Yeah, look for these reentries. And if you are right, and 2026 is just a setup here, it could catch a lot of people by surprise in terms of how this plays out. So intriguing things happening here on the show today. I want to take a look at Solana real quick. Solana surpassing all other chains, 30-day X volume. This right here, you look at this in comparison of the activity on Solana here recently. What does this translate in terms of price on the chart?
Yeah, so Solana's obviously had a lot of volume coming in there, and to pair that along, so this is a really good one because Solana's also been another one that I can't remember if we discussed it or not last time, but again, it's usually I'm not so harmonic setup heavy, but they've just been incredible recently. But again, a very systematic sequence of Fibonacci's here that led us into a key level back in April, which was about $98. And the setup with this was very incredible because basically you were ranging. We came up, we took the previous all-time high, which is the notable piece of this set. It's called the Shark, which has just been incredible. You take the highs, you come all the way back down, you take the lows. So you get everybody excited at the highs, obviously. And this one was a good one because it was right at the all-time high. So breakout traders were excited as can be. And this was back January of this year. Then you come all the way back down, you take out the lows, you know how that goes, the old liquidity sweep. And that sets up this pattern here with three specific targets, which is a simple, again, just identifying this ahead of time just gives me these areas to note. But Fibonacci retracement, the 0.5, the 0.886, and then a 1.13. So that means you're coming up 113% of this overall drop. And for Solana, we've come up and we've claimed one of the biggest levels on this setup is the 0.5. And after you do that, there's no gold pocket. There's nothing in between. It's usually straight up to this level here, which is 274. Again, in line with Solana picking up on a lot of volume on these exchanges and everything along that nature. And realistically, as long as we're holding above this region, 323 is what I target for Solana in the next few weeks here.
Next few weeks, 323 on Sol. Listen, if you're right on that one, Paul, we're going to have to give you some more flowers on the show here. That'll be a good move. And if you look at Solana in general, here's a clip from Scaramucci. He kind of hits on the whole idea because it's the largest market share in terms of all L1s. Take a look at this.
I believe Solana in 5 years, we're going to be looking back and saying, whoa, Solana has the largest market share of all these layer ones. So if you ask me to rank the layer ones, I'd tell you Solana's at the top of the list, and Solana will be, to me, the rail system for real world assets, stocks and bonds, commercial paper, et cetera. You and I both know that there are big banks here in the United States that are looking to tokenize on Solana. And when those stories come out and they're fully fleshed, I think it's going to be a very, very exciting time for you at the foundation, for me as an investor, and for people who actually are going to get real utility out of the technology.
All right, so Anthony shilling his book there. Let's just call it what it is. I mean, you know, he's a big Solana guy. So I appreciate that, you know, faith in the project. But if you were to compare Solana versus Ethereum, you know, this is a good example right here. There's a lot of upside here for Solana. $115 billion market cap versus what we're seeing on ETH. Obviously, we see the transaction superiority, the fee superiority. There's a lot of good things that could happen here. Would you, if you could only go into Sol or ETH right now, which one would you pick?
Ooh, man. Of the two at today's prices, just you know, I'm it's hard to like go into something like ETH after 300% rally, even though it's just breaking up on its all-time high. And then you look at things such as that, right? So, and also ETH is at a point where, you know, it's 500 billion or whatever the case is. And there is room to catch up if Solana was to take it. So yeah, cucumber to my head, you know, I guess I'd say Solana of the two because of, you know, potential reach from today's prices, but it's ETH is my baby though. So it's, you know, realistically, I'd tell you that here, and then in the corner, I wouldn't do it, but
you'd go ahead and go with the ETH trade.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I understand. Let's look at Avalanche, because this has been a battle between SWE and Avalanche right here. And I want to kind of show you, and this is a reference to Avalanche flipping SWE after SWE flipped Avalanche this week. A lot happening right there. You look at Avalanche as a trade right now, Paul. It's been on the move a little bit over the last few weeks, but is this one that can sustain a longer term move similar to what ETH and Solana are underway with right now?
Yes, so Avalanche is something that I've been targeting a sizable move on for quite some time. And what I've got pulled up here, just a very simple range here pulled based on the volume. So not sure. I think we might have talked about this last. Either way, it's been a few months. Obviously, this is a multi-month range that we just kind of accumulated at the bottom here. And the big key here was just we squeezed right up into the high side of the range. We were also right into, you know, just an ascending channel. You could just color this any way you want. This was a really bullish consolidation. You got the break outside of that range area. You've come back and essentially back tested it, you know, in a theory here. And now we're basically on a multi-month range break for an asset that, again, yes, has, you know, the fundamentals behind it. And on top of that, just has this, you know, it's been around. It's not just something that's completely brand new. I'll take that off here. And for me, I'm at least looking for this to run it back to $54. And that's a little bit more of a smaller time, you know, window here. If I'm looking at it be a more aggressive play over the next, you know, within the next year here, I think we have a run back up to like $100. And then at that point, we start looking at all-time highs. But this has been my overall, you know, viewpoint here on Avalanche for a bit. We've been, you know, like I said, trading around these lows. You're getting a nice little break here. Nothing's really materialized quite yet. So I'd say $54 would really give us that oomph. But of course, you don't want to wait for another 100% rally to get interested. And from there, though, I think that we have a chance to run this back up to $98 and then some on Avalanche.
All right, so Avalanche, definitely an aggressive move right now underway. Could be one token, and we'll kind of get your pick here in a second. But I want to jump over to SWE. And they, of course, had a lot happening this week. They had this whole SWE Fest that was happening. Obviously, a lot of drops in terms of news. We did a whole announcement on this yesterday here on the show. But if you look at SWE right now in the chart and how it's playing, because this is trading very hot right now, what is your pick on SWE versus Avalanche if you compared the two?
Yeah, so SWE is, you know, it's a newer project, obviously, but it's really got a super simple setup. I mean, I'm sure everybody could almost draw this out just as basic as it gets here with this bullish consolidation of this overall major move to the upside. You know, it's tightening up here. You could, you know, color this however you'd like. I think that we have a really nice move here towards this. It's called a 1-to-1, basically a measured move up to about $6.60. Pretty much under, unfolding here as long as we get a little push out of the market here. 35% up to this level, but it's about an 86% move. And not that I don't think that that's as high as it can get overall. But that's where I'd probably see the next major push up, cool down again for a little bit. So if I had to choose between the two, I'd go Avalanche.
Avalanche versus Sui. All right, so I'm going to throw one more curve at you because we've talked about Ethereum, Solana, Avalanche, and Sui. All right, now I can only pick 2 tokens for this new portfolio where we're building. What would the 2 today, as we're trading right now, what would be the 2 out of those 4?
2 out of those 4 to add to your new portfolio?
Yep.
I'd say Solana, and let's see here. It's just between those 4, huh? I'd say Solana and Avalanche.
Solana, Avalanche. Nice. Okay.
Yep.
All right. There you go, guys. DataDash has spoken. Solana, Avalanche for that special one. And hey, listen, we're going to hold you to this. Okay. I'm really interested in the 2026 theory.
Yep.
Because if that comes true, I think there will be a lot of people surprised on the moves in early Q1 and 2. So many things that will be kind of a narrative shift there for sure. So we'll definitely have you back on the show to kind of break that down, Paul. Is there any tokens that you're looking at right now that you would say, okay, this is kind of the easy plays, they're the blue chips? Is there anything that's more on the outside, maybe that you're working with that you're thinking, hey, this is an opportunity to kind of get a little bit more risky?
Yeah, just this one might not be crazy risk, but it's something that I've been looking at for a while. Actually, I just talked about it on a stream right before this. So Aptos, it's similar into the SWE category. It's not necessarily like a super small cap or anything like that, but it's just something that I like to put on risk when we're trading at the lows. Again, similar like the Avalanche move before it moved. So this is something that is really got just a simple potential to push up to the high side of the range here, which is like 150% move. And then of course my thinking is that I'm coming in these levels. Of course, I'll probably look to scale out a little bit if we hit those areas. But if things really get going, I'm looking at a $30 move out of this if we break this range. So picking up some down here has got some good ramifications if this does pick up in the next several months.
That could be a pretty big deal. I think when you look at it, we've talked about Aptos here on the show before, and there are some opportunities there. I think there's a lot of tokens right now that have been oversold and are queuing up to possibly being a cycle into altcoins. Are you in the belief group that an altcoin season is coming, and is it more of a layered altcoin season after Ethereum, or is this something that could happen at the same time?
So it goes into my idea for, so yes, the answer is yes. I think that an altcoin season is coming. I think it's going to be a little different than everybody expects, but a simple outlook here, and I'm sure maybe some others have shared this, but this is the altcoin or the total 2 market. So this is just everything minus Bitcoin. If you looked at the total 3 market, it looks the exact same. I've just been viewing this pretty much as we came into the key support where, again, ETH was 1,400 down here, and now you're coming up to this region. But this is a big setup that this is on the daily time frame. So you're talking from 2021 till now. This is a region where the altcoins could see a sizable move to. This is what is the altcoin season at the end of the day, right? This is all the altcoin moving up. The problem is, I think, that we will see something along these lines where you get a nice little burst and then everybody only thinks we go up, straight in a line. But in theory, you're going to come up. You'll probably hit a little resistance here. You come back for your retest of this, previous resistance, now support, and then you get that continuation. And literally, as I'm scrolling over here, you can see the bottom of the chart even takes us into 2026, right? So the idea at hand is that we push up, and not only because of this chart, but because of the ETH and the ETH BTC and my Bitcoin outlook, is that we do push up a little bit more here into the end of the year, but then we get a sizable correction. More than anything, people probably think we go into a bear market over it because, again, its timing lines up with 4-year cycle. I think people would not want to touch anything for a year. And then I think they'll be quite surprised if things really take off in the beginning of next year instead of just continue to crash. So that's my outlook in a nutshell.
That would be definitely a contrarian viewpoint, I think, because a lot of people would hate themselves if that occurs.
Exactly.
In 2026, they'll be going, what did I do? What did I do? I'm losing.
It's generally the view I try to take, so we'll see.
Yeah, I like it. Hey, listen, we're gonna have you back on the show. We'll continue to follow through with this thesis. see how well it does. I mean, the last time you were on, you hit on several notes right there in terms of Bitcoin all-time high and also where ETH could go. So kudos to you, Paul. Thanks for coming in today. We appreciate it.
Paul, thanks as always, my friend. Have a great weekend.
All right, see ya. All right, you guys, make sure and jump in on the Diamond Circle. It's our own private group that you can become part of for absolutely free. I put an email out each week. We do some picks in there. We do things like this where we break down a lot of our research in there, so check it out. It's the link down below. And of course, follow me on X, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on The Paul Barron Show.